Goldfinger is a 1964 spy film and the third installment in the James Bond series, produced by Eon Productions, starring Sean Connery as the fictional MI6 agent, James Bond. It is based on the 1959 novel of the same name by Ian Fleming. The film also stars Honor Blackman as Pussy Galore and Gert Fröbe as title character Auric Goldfinger, along with Shirley Eaton as the ill-fated Jill Masterson. Goldfinger was produced by Albert Broccoli and Harry Saltzman and was the first of 4 Bond films to be directed by Guy Hamilton. The film's plot has Bond investigating gold smuggling by gold magnate Auric Goldfinger and eventually uncovering Goldfinger's plans to contaminate the United States bullion depository at Fort Knox. Goldfinger was the first Bond blockbuster with a budget equal to that of the 2 preceding films combined. Principal photography took place from January to July 1964 in the United Kingdom, Switzerland, and the United States. Goldfinger was heralded as the film in the franchise where James Bond comes into focus. Its release led to a number of promotional license tie-in terms, including a toy Aston Martin DB5, a car from Corgi Toys, which became the biggest selling toy of 1964. The promotion also included the image of a gold-painted Eton on the cover of Life. Many of the elements introduced in the film appeared in many of the later James Bond films, such as the extensive use of technology and gadgets by Bond, an extensive pre-credit sequence that stood largely alone from the main storyline, multiple foreign locales, and a tongue-in-cheek sort of humour. Goldfinger was the first Bond film to win an Oscar for Best Sound Editing and opened to largely favourable critical reception. The film was a financial success, recouping its budget in 2 weeks and grossing over $120 million worldwide. In 1999, it was ranked number 70 on the BFI Top 100 British Films list compiled by the British Film Institute. The cast includes Sean Connery as James Bond 007, an MI6 agent who is sent to investigate Auric Goldfinger. Connery reprised the role of Bond for the 3rd time in a row. His salary rose, but a pay dispute later broke out during filming. After he suffered a back injury when filming the scene with oddjob knocks Bond unconscious in Miami, the dispute was settled. Eon and Connery agreed to a deal where the actor would receive 5% of the gross of each Bond film he starred in. Honor Blackman as Pussy Galore, Goldfinger's personal pilot and leader of the all-female team of pilots known as Pussy Galore's Flying Circus. Blackman was selected for the role of Pussy Galore because of her role as the skilled judoka Kathy Gale in The Avengers, for which she had received martial arts training. The script was rewritten to make Pussy Galore a judoka as well. The character's name follows in the tradition of other Bond girls' names that are double entendres. Concerned about censors, the producers thought about changing the character's name to Kitty Galore, but they and Guy Hamilton eventually decided to retain the character's name. Guy Hamilton was quoted as saying, "If you were a 10-year-old boy and you knew what the name meant, you were not a 10-year-old boy, you were a dirty little bitch." The American censor was concerned, but we got around that by inviting him and his wife out to dinner and told him we were big supporters of the Republican Party. During promotion, Blackman took delight in embarrassing interviewers by repeatedly mentioning the character's name. Whilst the American censors did not interfere with the name in the film, they refused to allow the name Pussy Galore to appear on the promotional materials, and for the US market she was subsequently called Miss Galore, or Goldfinger's personal pilot. Gert Fröbe as Auric Goldfinger, a wealthy psychopathic man obsessed with gold. Orson Welles was considered, but his financial demands were too high. Theodore Beckel auditioned for the role but failed. Fröbe was cast because the producers saw his performance as a child molester in the German film It Happened in Broad Daylight. Fröbe, who spoke little English, said his lines phonetically but was too slow. To redub him, he had to have double the speed of his performance to get the right tempo. The only time his real voice is heard is during the meeting with the members of the Mafia at Auric Stud. Bond is hidden below the model of the Fort Knox, while Fröbe's natural voice can be heard above. However, he was redubbed for the rest of the film by TV actor Michael Collins. The match is widely praised as one of the most successful dubs in cinema history. Shirley Eaton as Jill Masterson, Bond girl and Goldfinger's aide-de-camp, who Bond catches helping the villain cheat at a game of cards. He seduces her, but for her betrayal she is completely painted in gold paint, and according to Bond dies from skin suffocation. Eaton was sent by her agent to meet Harry Saltzman and agreed to take part if the nudity was done tastefully. It took an hour and a half to apply the paint on her body. Although only having a small part in the film, the image of her painted gold was renowned, and Eaton appeared on the cover of Life magazine on the 6th of November, 1964. Harold Sakata as Oddjob, Goldfinger's lethal Korean manservant. Director Guy Hamilton cast Sakata as Olympic silver medalist weightlifter as Oddjob after seeing him on a wrestling program. Hamilton called Sakata as an absolutely charming man and found that he had a very unique way of moving. So in creating Oddjob, I used all of Harold's own characteristics, he said. Sakata was badly burned when filming his death scene in which Oddjob was electrocuted by Bond. Sakata, however, kept holding onto the hat with determination in spite of the pain, until the director called cut. Oddjob has been described as a wordless role, but one of cinema's greatest villains. Bernard Lee as M, the 007 boss and head of the British Secret Service. Seek Linda as Felix Leiter, Bond's CIA liaison in the United States. Linda was the only actor actually on location in Miami. Linda's interpretation of Leiter was that of a somewhat older man than the way the character was played by Jack Lord in Dr. No. In reality, Leiter was a year younger than Lord actually was. According to screenwriter Richard Malabim, Lord demanded co-star billing, a bigger role and more money to reprise the role of Felix Leiter for the film. That led producers into recasting the role. At the last minute, Seek Leiter switched roles with Austin Willis, who played cards with Goldfinger. And Desmond Llewellyn as Q, the head of the Q branch. He supplies 007 with a modified Aston Martin DB5. Hamilton told Llewellyn to inject humour into the character, thus beginning the friendly antagonism between Q and Bond that became a hallmark of the series. He had already appeared in the previous Bond film From Russia with Love, and with the exception of Live and Let Die, he would continue to play Q in the next 16 Bond films. While filming From Russia with Love, Richard Malabim began working on the script for On Her Majesty's Secret Service, as this was intended to be the next film in the series. But with the release date set for September 1964, there was not enough time to prepare for the location shooting in Switzerland, and the adaptation was put on hold. With the court case between Kevin McClory and Fleming surrounding Thunderball still in the High Court, producers Albert Broccoli and Harry Saltzman turned to Goldfinger as the third Bond film. Terence Young, who directed the previous two films, chose to film the amorous adventures of Mole Flanders instead, after a pay dispute that saw him denied a percentage of the film's profits. Broccoli and Saltzman turned instead to Guy Hamilton to direct. Hamilton, who had turned down directing Dr. No, felt that he needed to make Bond less of a Superman by making the villain seem more powerful. Hamilton knew Fleming, as both were involved during the intelligence matters in the Royal Navy during World War II. Lead writer on the film, Richard Malabim, fixed the novel's heavily criticised plot hole, where Goldfinger actually attempts to empty Fort Knox. In the film, Bond notes that it would take 12 days for Goldfinger to steal the gold before the villain reveals he actually intends to eradicate it with the then topical concept of a red Chinese atomic bomb. Principal photography commenced on the 20th of January 1964 in Miami Beach, Florida, at the Fontainebleau Hotel. The crew was small, consisting only of Hamilton and Broccoli, Adam, and cinematographer Ted Moore. Connery never travelled to Florida to film because he was shooting Marnie, elsewhere in the United States. On the DVD audio commentary, director Hamilton states that other than Linda, who played Felix Leiter, none of the main actors in the Miami sequence were actually there. The whole card-playing scene was actually shot at Pinewood Studios. Broccoli earned permission to film in Fort Knox area with the help of friend, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Russian. To shoot Pussy Galore's flying circus gassing the soldiers, the pilots were only allowed to fly above 3,000 feet. Hamilton recalled this was hopeless, so they flew about 500 feet, and the military went absolutely ape. The scenes of the people fainting involved the same set of soldiers, moving to different locations.